Chapter 829. Saturday night was the most active time for the netizens. For the single dogs who lived in the city, playing games, reading blogs, watching videos, and bragging on the forum was undoubtedly the cheapest form of entertainment. It was already past 10 o'clock. In the Jianghai Community Forum, the number of online members and visitors increased. The number of posts in the major sections such as miscellaneous topics, national outlook, military, entertainment, film and television reached new highs. As a famous online community in the country, Jianghai's forum had always been very popular. Often when a post was refreshed, it would sink and disappear in a few seconds. Only posts that were enhanced by the moderator could squeeze into the front page. And tonight, at least half of the popular posts on the front page of the film and television section were related to the recently released Young Pugilistic World. Moreover, they were all film reviews written by gods. There were many gods in the Jianghai Community Film and Television section. Their common characteristic was that they stayed online for a long time. The frequency of their posts was very high. Moreover, all of them could be considered as jokers. When they commented on popular or obscure movies and TV series, they were often very sharp. Many times, they were like venomous snakes. However, generally speaking, the film and television works that were criticized by these gods were not necessarily failures. There was no lack of box office sales or high ratings, but they were still able to influence a group of audiences. In fact, there was no lack of real film critics, freelancers, or even media reporters among the great gods in Jianghai. There was definitely a certain gap between their appreciation and that of the general public. Just like the works they praised, the box office might be so bleak that they couldn't even recover the cost. This week, Jianghai Community had a movie viewing event and received a lot of free tickets. Some of them were given as rewards to senior members, and some were used for lucky draws. Therefore, today, Young Pugilistic World was released nationwide. There were many people who ran to the film and television section to watch it. Of course, this also included a group of gods. Tonight, the firepower of the gods in Jianghai was all focused on Young Pugilistic World. Spending 150 million to get this thing, I'm really laughing. Leaving halfway through, it's really boring. The essence of Young Pugilistic World is all in the trailer. After watching the trailer, there's no need to buy a ticket. I wasted 100 yuan. It was simply a flood of negative comments. Su Kai's post, I just finished watching Young World in Pugilistic World. Share your thoughts on the movie, was also one of them. Compared to those gurus who were spewing venom, Su Kai's post was undoubtedly more neutral. It was also written in great detail and was very realistic. Therefore, the moderator added the essence of the post and sent it to the front page. The number of clicks quickly exceeded 10,000. Su Kai's post was filled with resentment and ridicule. As a fan of the novel, he had bought all the legal books of Young Wanderer and read them twice. He quite liked this martial arts novel, and he was looking forward to the movie that was adapted into a movie. Especially after watching the exciting trailer, he spent a lot of effort to get tickets. In the end, he brought his girlfriend to watch the show at night and was splashed with a bucket of cold water. This was because Wanhao Pictures had adapted Young Pugilistic World to a ridiculous degree. The story was fragmented, the connection was stiff, and there were problems with the logic. Although there were many stars in the movie, there were no characters that made people's eyes light up. To be fair, the special effects of this movie were done quite well. The giant screen effect was very outstanding. However, the fighting in the movie was completely magical, and it was completely different from the martial arts style in the original novel. In other words, Young Pugilistic World was actually a magical special effects film in the guise of wuxia. Coupled with the messy relationships between the characters and a third-rate romance story, it was all boiled into a steaming pot and served up to the table. Su Kai felt that it was not delicious. It was filled with a strange taste, and it was not the taste that he had imagined. He had already watched a few similar blockbusters a few years ago, when the IP of online novels was very popular. He was already tired of it, and the special effects of Young Wanderer was far from being comparable to the top Hollywood blockbusters. Then what was the selling point of this movie? Was it Hua Fail's face that had no acting skills and only knew how to act cool? Su Kai was really disappointed. He felt like he had been cheated. The dissatisfaction and ridicule he expressed in the post were acknowledged by many netizens who had also watched the movie that night. Everyone had booked tickets in advance or snatched tickets. They rushed into the theater excitedly, bought drinks and popcorn, and were waiting to enjoy a feast for the eyes. In the end, just as Su Kai had said, everyone's appetite had been whetted by the early publicity of Young Wanderer, which was why there was such a big gap. If one did not have such high expectations, they could actually just watch the movie with popcorn. The most disappointed people were probably the fans of the original novel. There were also a few fans in the movie version. According to them, they wanted to stuff the script into the scriptwriter's mouth so that he could swallow it and then take it out. Maybe the things that he would take out would be even more valuable. At the same time, on the Waves blog, the comments on Young Wanderer were polarized. One side was cheering and strongly recommending it, while the other side was criticizing it and criticizing it. There were also many people who did not know the truth but liked to join in the fun. The two sides were fighting fiercely in the official V of Young Wanderer. Actually, be it praise or criticism, the success or failure of a movie was ultimately determined by the box office. There were many blockbuster movies that had been scolded badly, and some of them even became more popular the more they were scolded. It was hard to say. The next morning, the box office rankings on Guangying website were updated on time. Young Wanderer's first day of screening was 42.75%, with a box office of 107 million. It broke 100 million on the first day. Although it was not rare for a movie to break 100 million on the first day, as a purely domestic movie, Young Wanderer's box office breaking 100 million on the first day was still very dazzling. It was worthy of the media praising it. On the internet, the voices of those who were criticizing it were suppressed by the box office of more than 100 million. The influence of a forum like Zhanghai Community Movie Version could not be compared to the Waves blog. No matter how fiercely they criticized it, it did not affect the overall situation. On the 6th of July, Young Wanderer's box office hit 125 million. It had accumulated 232 million in 2 days. It showed a strong momentum and caused many cinemas to increase the number of screenings, crushing the other movies that were released at the same time. But no one expected that on the 7th of July, the box office of Young Wanderer would suddenly take a big dive. It dropped from 125 million on the previous day to 61 million, a drop of more than 50%. Such a drastic drop caused the industry to be in an uproar. Chapter 830. Whether a movie can sell well at the box office or not, there are many factors that affect it. In addition to its own quality, audience preferences, and even the timing of its release are very important. Publicity and distribution are also indispensable, and cannot be generalized. Some movies cost only a few million, and finally got a box office of more than 100 million, and some invested hundreds of millions, and ended up in a mess. There is no fixed model that can be applied to box office results. Therefore, in the movie market, box office plunges from time to time, and it is not worth making a fuss about. But the problem with Young Jianghu is that the previous publicity was so grand that the money spent was almost as much as the production cost of the film. After the premiere, the reviews were good, the box office exceeded 100 million on the first day, and it earned 230 million in 2 days. It should have been a hit film, so how could it be directly cut in half overnight? In fact, the truth is very easy to find, and that is the audience's reputation. Today is the age of the internet, and the speed at which hundreds of millions of netizens accept information is extremely fast, and the main audience in the movie market overlaps with netizens very high, so it is easy to be affected by online public opinion. Of course, the film producers and distributors are well aware of the role of online public opinion. At least 50% of the publicity budget is aimed at online media, in order to firmly grasp the direction of public opinion on the internet. However, now the vast number of netizens are no longer so easy to fool. After more than 10 years of indiscriminate bombardment of all kinds of information, they have their own trusted source channels to obtain information on the internet, and have also mastered a lot of ability to distinguish internet water army. They believe in their own judgment rather than blindly follow other people's opinions. It is simply impossible to control the thoughts of hundreds of millions of netizens. 2 days after Young Jianghu was released, related movie reviews and viewing experiences appeared in blogs, forums and QQ groups in large numbers, deeply affecting those potential audiences. And the word of mouth of Young Jianghu festered very quickly on the internet. The situation on the blog was not bad, but in many forums like Jianghai Community Film and Television Version, as well as many QQ groups, this martial arts movie was criticized to pieces. A large number of people who have watched the movie shouted that they were fooled, thinking that they spent money to watch a bad movie. Many people were angry that they were deceived by the promotional video. It was like going to meet with a girlfriend of many years, only to see the other party's bare face. The complaints about the plot of the movie were even more overwhelming, and everyone said that their IQ had been insulted. The movie industry was getting more and more developed. Every year, a large number of new movies were released, and the domestic audience had seen more and more blockbusters, so there was a higher demand and viewing standard for movies. More than a decade ago, any Hollywood blockbuster could sweep the domestic market. Today, it no longer exists. The box office of the homogenized blockbusters is getting more and more dismal. Only the real premium products can win people's love and pursuit. As a new generation in the industry, although Wanhao Pictures had a strong background and great ambition, their judgment of the domestic film market was obviously still a few years ago. They thought that they would be successful by relying on high cost, many stars, special effects, and enhanced publicity. In the end, they were slapped hard in the face by reality. The market was cruel. On the 8th of July, Young Pugilistic World's box office continued to plummet, dropping to 35 million. It could be considered a new record. Of course, it was definitely not a glorious record that was worth bragging about. If the trend continued to fall, it would be impossible for Wanhao Pictures to recoup their capital, because the production cost of Young Pugilistic World and the promotion cost nearly 300 million. Even if they broke even, they would need at least 600 million in the box office. Getting 320 million in 4 days, it shouldn't be a problem to exceed 600 million. However, the drop was too tragic, to the extent that it made people feel hopeless. There were also people in the industry that if Young Pugilistic World wanted to recoup their capital, there was too much pressure on the cinema chains. However, they could recoup their capital or even make a profit through the sale of the copyrights. However, a few days ago, these people in the industry thought that Young Pugilistic World's box office wouldn't have much pressure to exceed 1 billion. It could even reach 2 billion. What was worse was that because the box office of Young Pugilistic Worlds dropped too quickly, the cinema chains only reacted on the 9th and greatly reduced the number of screenings. This made things worse for Wanhao Pictures. Of course, Wanhao Pictures wasn't willing to give up. On one hand, they continued to promote, on the other hand, they used their connections to ask for help from the cinema chains, hoping to maintain a relatively high number of screenings. However, the market was cruel and merciless. As a new force in the industry, Wanhao Pictures had many more enemies than friends. If there was a chance to hit them when they were down, they definitely wouldn't mind giving it a push. The decrease in the number of screenings for Young Pugilistic World was about the same as the drop in the box office on the 6th and 7th. It was completely powerless and couldn't even struggle on its deathbed. Not only that, the dismal box office and the bad reputation made the peripherals of Young Pugilistic World almost unable to be sold. Wanhao Pictures' investment in this area was all for naught. On the 12th of July, Young Pugilistic World had a cumulative box office of 367 million in 7 days. The number of screenings dropped to less than 10%. It was destined to lose everything. This also taught Wanhao Pictures, this rich second generation, a good lesson. Actually, it wasn't only Wanhao Pictures that was affected. The industry was also greatly shaken. Through the example of Young Pugilistic World's box office, many people realized the cruelty of the market. At the same time, they started to have doubts about films and TV works with wuxia themes. Some film companies originally planned to follow the trend of shooting wuxia dramas, but they all stopped their plans. The truth proved that their decision was correct. The new Seven Heroes and Five Gallants, which was officially released on the 12th, only had a box office of 27 million on the first day. This made the producer, Dottie Pictures, want to cry but have no tears. The worst was Wanderer of the Pugilistic World, which was released on the 15th. Dragged down by the market, the box office on the first day was actually less than 10 million. It was a complete loss. All of a sudden, the reputation of wuxia movies plummeted. Even the value of the previously sought-after martial arts IP fell. The novel rights that were previously priced at millions were now unsold even after a discount. The situation of chasing up and down did not only occur in the stock market. On the 17th, the first Hollywood blockbuster during the summer vacation, the animated masterpiece, Dream Flyer, produced by Disney, was released. The number of screenings on the first day was more than 50%, which also gave the three domestic wuxia movies the final blow. A glorious start, but a dismal ending. This inevitably made people doubt the smiling, proud Wanderer, which would be released during the National Day period. Could the latter still support the sky of wuxia movies? Chapter 831. Disney's animated blockbusters had dominated the domestic summer period for a long time, but in recent years, they had been surpassed by domestic films. However, as one of the top film giants in Hollywood, no one would doubt the quality and box office of Dream Flyer. Young Jianghu, The Seven Heroes and Five Righteous, and A Vagabond were all released before Dream Flyer, just to take advantage of the time difference and compete for the box office market first. In the end, who would have thought that the three popular martial arts movies would end up in such a miserable state? They didn't even have the chance to kill each other before they were crushed by the Disney movies that came later. On the 20th, the box office of Young Jianghu barely exceeded 400 million, and on the internet, there were more and more gossip about Young Jianghu buying the box office. At this point, Wanhao Pictures basically gave up on the follow-up publicity of this blockbuster, because everyone knew that Young Jianghu was beyond its power. If they continued to spend money on publicity, it would be like throwing money into the water. Even so, The Seven Heroes and Five Righteous was released for 8 days, and the box office was less than 50 million, which was a huge loss. Goulet, who had been jumping up and down on the internet some time ago, didn't even update his blog, and even deleted many of his previous blog posts. The higher they held it, the higher they jumped, the harder they fell. As for Vagabond, the producers were about to jump off a building, and the investors even wanted to beg for food. And these three martial arts films, the audience's comments were uniformly bad, such as, "the same old," and "the plot is too melodramatic," could be found on the three films. Several film companies couldn't put their knives back into the sheath, and they accused each other of vicious competition, which made people very speechless. In the eyes of the people in the industry, the martial arts IP that had been hyped up a while ago was now completely ruined. Big bubbles had been burst, and they were basically declared dead. Such a dramatic scene made many people focus their attention on the initiator of the martial arts IP, the smiling, the proud Wanderer, starring Lu Chen. The wuxia theme had failed. It had almost exhausted the market of this IP. Could the smiling, the proud Wanderer, which had been shot and was in post-production, turn the tide in the National Day period and re-establish the banner of wuxia movies? There were not many people who were optimistic about the movie. Although the smiling, the proud Wanderer was adapted from the most popular wuxia novel, and it had a big director and a big star in it, the box office was not optimistic because the audience was no longer interested in it. Perhaps the fame of Lu Chen, Chen Feier, Lu Gangsheng, and other big names could attract a lot of fans to buy tickets and enter the cinema. However, they would only be spending the fans, and there would not be much glory in breaking even. No one knew where the evil wind came from. While criticizing the three failures of Young Jianghu, the media did not forget to step on the smiling, the proud Wanderer to prove their foresight. Chen Fei media remained silent on the media that was stirring up trouble. It gave people the feeling that no matter what others said, it had nothing to do with Chen Fei media. Some people couldn't help but feel restless because of this. Are you just going to keep silent? At the headquarters of Chen Fei Media, Lok Shi, who had endured for more than half a month, finally couldn't stand it anymore. She ran to the special effects studio and found Lu Chen, who had been supervising the post-production. She pulled him aside and complained, "Someone spread a rumor on the internet, saying that The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, will not be continued after this one, and that it is an unfinished work." Chen Fei Media had announced a long time ago that The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer would be divided into 3 films, and the 3 films would be shot consecutively and released separately from this year to next year. Such a rumor was not completely unreasonable. The martial arts films had been made to such an extent that the box office market was a big problem. Under such circumstances, if Chen Fei Media continued to invest in the production of the remaining 2 films, there was no doubt that it would be a great risk. After spending hundreds of millions, they would lose everything in the end. It would not only be a blow to Chen Fei Media, but also to Lu Chen. After all, he was the one who started the wuxia trend. If they were rational, the last 2 films should be suspended indefinitely until the market turned around. That was the safest and most rational choice, and also the most logical and reasonable choice. These people, Lu Chen shook his head and said, they just want to see us make a fool of ourselves. They hope that we will spend all the money on The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. It would be the best if we fail. As for the sinister intentions behind the rumor, Lu Chen was as clear as a blazing fire. He had already experienced the filth of some people. Being in this circle, he was no longer surprised by it. But they wanted to see Lu Chen make a fool of himself, and Lu Chen also wanted to see them make a fool of themselves. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "If we don't do anything soon, we will really become a joke." It's almost August now. Is the promotion of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer going to start? Because of the cancellation, although the budget and plan of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer had been made a long time ago, it had not been put into practice. It needed to be launched at the right time. The National Day would start on October 1st, and there were still 2 months until now. It was a bit long for the promotion cycle, but it was no problem to release the preview. Many Hollywood blockbusters would release the preview a year or more in advance, and promote at the same time. Lu Chen thought for a while and said, "Let's wait until the influence of those movies is over." Lu Chen was a human, not a god. Although he did not have high hopes for Junior Pugilistic World and other competitors, the current situation was beyond his expectations. The reputation of the martial arts movies was ruined, and it would definitely have an impact on The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. So if they started the promotion now, the audience would not only not buy it, but might even have a rebellious mentality. She calmed down and felt that Lu Chen's concerns were reasonable. She said with hatred, "It's all because of those *T*sters who hurt others without benefiting themselves. Such a good story was ruined by them." Lu Chen smiled, and his eyes fell on the computer screen on the workbench not far away. The latter's matching host was calculating a CG picture. True gold fears no fire. I have confidence in The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. There is nothing to worry about. Lu Chen said confidently, "It's not easy to follow the trend, not to mention that they didn't even follow the real trend. They deserve to shoot themselves in the foot. We should follow our own steps, and don't be led by others. As for the public opinion, let's go our own way, and let others talk." Chapter 832. After nearly 4 years, Lu Chen had become much more mature than he used to be. Now he had completely integrated the memories of 3 lives from the dream world. After experiencing the ups and downs of the entertainment circle, he was no longer inferior to those real superstars in terms of breadth of mind and experience. If Lu Chen had the popularity of a superstar a year and a half ago, now he had the temperament of a superstar and stood at the peak of his life. Because of this, Lu Chen would not care about the gains and losses in front of him. As long as he did not involve the kind of scandal that could ruin his reputation, ordinary public opinion could not shake him at all. Then why should he take the initiative to get involved in these things? The final proof would always be the work. Lu Chen had not only invested a lot of money into this film, but he had also put a lot of effort into it. The first part of the filming was completed on time, and the second part of the production was even more important. How could he have the time and energy to argue with others? Of course, she was not reconciled. With her temper, if others trampled on her, she should beat them back fiercely. She did not want to be looked down upon by others without saying a word. But on the other hand, her sister's support for Lu Chen was unconditional. Since Lu Chen decided to ignore it, she also gave up several publicity counterattack plans that she had thought of. She concentrated on managing and rectifying the internal affairs of Chinfei Media, and did not let the outside public opinion affect the mood of the company's employees. And Chinfei Media's uncooperative attitude of, "You do your own thing, I do my own thing," made the media who intended to stir up trouble unable to do anything, like a mouse pulling a tortoise. After a while, they naturally gave up. In today's society, the speed of information transmission was too fast. Every day, new news emerged one after another. It was not an earth-shattering event, so once the heat passed, it naturally became silent. The sad ones were Wanhao Pictures, Land Pictures, and Crown Pictures. The three of them were big players in the industry, and the latter two were even veteran film companies. This time, they failed miserably. Although the box office failure of a movie wouldn't hurt them to the point where they couldn't make a comeback, it would still make them a joke in the industry, and they would be humiliated. Time passed quietly, and Beijing entered the month of wildfire. Young Pugilistic World, The New 7 Heroes and 5 Gallants, and Pugilistic World Wanderer, were removed from the domestic cinemas one after another, ending their journey pathetically. Crushed by Disney's summer animated blockbuster, Dream Flyer, none of the three martial arts movies could rely on the box office to earn back their investment, and all of them suffered heavy losses. The impact of this was that many films of the same genre that were in preparation were aborted, and investors no longer favored martial arts films. The vigorous ones at the beginning had now disappeared. At the same time, many Hollywood blockbusters were released in the country. They were like wolves fighting for the box office, which also attracted the attention of the audience. No one would care about a few failures. On the Waves blog, a well-known film critic concluded that the fate of films like Young Pugilistic World was a failed attempt by domestic films to take a new path. If they wanted to break out of the mold of the original domestic films, they had to find another way. His view was supported by many people in the industry. However, not many people talked about The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, which was expected to be released during the National Day. People were generally pessimistic. They thought that with the precedent of Young Pugilistic World, it would be difficult for The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer to create outstanding results. Some people even predicted that The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer would be Lu Chen's Waterloo, which would end his invincibility. The summer vacation passed like this. Looking back at the whole of July and August, except for 2 low-budget films that won a good reputation, there was nothing worth mentioning about domestic films. Most of the box office was harvested by Hollywood blockbusters. September 10th, 20 days before the screening of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. Very good. At the headquarters of Chinfei Media, in an audition room temporarily converted from a small conference room, when the projection screen displayed the ending credits, Chen Guizhi, who was sitting in the middle of the front row, stood up and said in a firm tone, "Excellent, better than I expected." There was a burst of applause and laughter in the audition room. Chen Guizhi reached out his hand to Lu Chen and said with emotion, "Lu Chen, I am very happy and honored to be able to cooperate with you in this movie." The movie that had just finished playing in the audition room was the digitally edited version of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. Although Chen Guizhi was the director of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, his work was mainly focused on the shooting of the early stage. The special effects, editing, dubbing, music and so on were basically handled by Lu Chen. To be honest, when Chen Guizhi took over The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, he didn't care too much about it. He was mainly moved by Lu Chen's sincerity, and also owed him a favor. However, after shooting the movie and seeing the final result, the great director's heart was also fiercely shocked. He even slightly regretted that he did not put in 100% of his effort when directing the shooting. There were some details in the movie that were not perfect. The relationship between the characters was not clear enough, and the plot twist was a little stiff. From a professional point of view, there were still many problems. However, these problems couldn't cover up the brilliance of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, especially the effects of several key scenes, which made him, a famous director, feel refreshed. Chen Guiji's professional sensitivity told him that this would be a blockbuster film. Thinking of some people's negative comments on the media not long ago, Chen Guiji couldn't help smiling. "Director Chen, you are too kind," Lu Chen said quickly. "It is my honor and luck to be able to cooperate with you." Lu Chen was sincere. Without Chen Guiji, the senior director, the shooting of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer wouldn't be so smooth. Besides, he learned a lot from Chen Guiji. It was no exaggeration to say that Chen Guiji was his mentor. He deserved his respect. Chen Guiji shook his head with a smile and said, "I am ashamed to say that. I didn't do much, but I still have the title of director." After a pause, he asked, "It will be released in 20 days. Why didn't I see anything from your promotion?" As a film with an investment of hundreds of millions, the promotion of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was seriously lagging behind. Normally, it should have started 1 or 2 months earlier. Of course, Chen Guiji was very clear about the situation 1 or 2 months ago. It was really not suitable for promotion. But it was a bit too much if there was no promotion until now. Chapter 833. There was a reason why Chen Guiji cared about the marketing of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. First of all, he was the director of the movie. Although the box office success or failure couldn't shake his position in the industry, who would want his movie to be ignored in the market? Secondly, he appreciated Lu Chen. After more than half a year of cooperation, Chen Guiji had a good understanding of Lu Chen. He appreciated Lu Chen's character, talent, and dedication in work very much. He didn't want Lu Chen to make a low-level mistake at the most critical moment. Nowadays, the box office of the movies was getting higher and higher, so it was more and more dependent on marketing. Especially those blockbusters with amazing investment, they often needed a lot of marketing expenses, which often took up more than 30% of the total budget. 2 months ago, Young Pugilistic World, The New 7 Heroes and 5 Gallants, and Pugilistic World Wanderer had launched a publicity war. The amount of money invested was not a small amount. Putting aside the final tragic result, the public opinion formed at that time was undoubtedly very strong, attracting the attention of countless people. Now the 3 wuxia movies all failed, and even the reputation of the whole theme was dragged down. Under such circumstances, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was in an awkward situation, which undoubtedly needed to be solved through marketing. But it was obviously not easy to rebuild the confidence of the audience. So Chen Guiji was very worried. Was there enough time to carry out large-scale marketing in the remaining 20 days? Regarding Chen Guiji's question, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Director Chen, don't worry. We have already started the marketing work. I believe you will see the results soon." In fact, strictly speaking, the marketing of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer had already started last year, but they didn't invest a lot of money in the media to advertise. Originally, the official marketing period of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer would be in July or August, but it was messed up by someone, so they could only delay it until now. But the marketing and publicity department of Chen Fei Media was not just for show. The relevant preparations had already been completed, and they were just waiting for the right time to help The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer regain its reputation as a wuxia movie. If other young people said this to him, Chen Guiji would only think that they were exaggerating. But as for Lu Chen, he chose to believe Lu Chen because of the trust built up in more than half a year of cooperation. "That's good." After thinking about it, Chen Guiji said to Lu Chen, "I also know a lot of people in the media. If there's a need, I can more or less help. Also, are you not going to attend the Shanghai International Film Festival next month?" Shanghai International Film Festival? Lu Chen was stunned. He had never thought of sending The Smiling, Proud Wanderer to the Shanghai International Film Festival. The Shanghai International Film Festival was one of the 3 major film festivals in the country, and it was the earliest one. It was established in the early 1990s and was held once a year. It was also the first film festival in the country to be recognized by the International Film Producers Association. It was one of the 15 international A-list film festivals in the world and was recognized by the International Film Producers Association. Compared with the Beijing International Film Festival, which was also one of the 3 major film festivals. The Shanghai International Film Festival focused more on expanding the commercial market and encouraged diverse artistic creation. Therefore, it attracted many filmmakers from home and abroad to participate. Chen Guizhi said seriously, "Actually, I would prefer you to hold the premiere of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer at the Shanghai International Film Festival, but the timing is not right." The Shanghai International Film Festival was held in mid-October, right after the National Day. If The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer premiered at the Shanghai International Film Festival, it meant that it would miss the National Day. This was unacceptable to Lu Chen and Qinfei Media. Compared with the box office, attending the film festival was not important at all. The purpose of attending the film festival was to expand the influence of the film. In the final analysis, it was still about the box office, not the other way around. Lu Chen smiled bitterly. "Yes, the timing is too bad. If the Shanghai International Film Festival was held half a month earlier, he would definitely try to send The Smiling, Proud Wanderer there, because it was a good promotion point." But it was said that the Shanghai International Film Festival was going to change the time to June, which was before the summer holiday. That way, many domestic films could premiere at the film festival. Of course, the first film of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would not be able to catch up with this wave, but the next one might be able to. Chen Guizhi said, "It doesn't matter if we can't catch up with the premiere, we can send it to the exhibition." He further explained, "We don't need to attend the awards, because it's meaningless. The purpose of sending it to the exhibition is to promote The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, to overseas sellers and the market." Lu Chen suddenly understood. In fact, Lu Chen didn't attach much importance to several domestic film festivals. Whether it was the Capital International Film Festival or the Shanghai International Film Festival, the water in them was very deep, especially in the award link. They often made some jaw-dropping news, and their reputation among the film audience was not very good. But if they only sent it to the exhibition to attract sellers from other countries, it would be very good. Especially in Southeast Asian countries, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer should have a certain market. Using the Shanghai International Film Festival to promote it would undoubtedly save a lot of effort. After thinking it through, Lu Chen immediately nodded and said, "Then I will ask my company to contact the organizer of the film festival." "Is it too late to sign up now?" Chen Guizhi smiled and said, "I have already signed up for you. You can ask your company to contact them." Under normal circumstances, the applicant for The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer should be Qinfei Media. No one was qualified. However, Chen Guizhi was a famous director in the country. It was very easy for him to inform the organizer in advance. It was nothing more than letting Qinfei Media fill in the formalities. Lu Chen was very grateful. "Thank you, Director Chen." "Don't mention it," Chen Guizhi shook his head and said, "It's not a big deal. That's all I can do for you. I really hope The Smiling, Proud Wanderer can create a new genre of domestic films, and go out of China to the world." He sighed and said, "Nowadays, domestic films have reached the stage of innovation. I think wuxia films have the potential to do that, and The Smiling, Proud Wanderer also has the ability to do that." He didn't mention the other wuxia films, such as Jianghu Yang, because after watching the sample of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, he thought those were just clumsy followers. They didn't even imitate the essence of wuxia films. They couldn't even be counted as real wuxia films. Chen Guizhi was looking forward to the official screening of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Chapter 834. After sending Chen Guizhi away, Lu Chen informed Lu Shi to hold an internal meeting of the company. General Affairs Department, Marketing Department, Client Department, Finance Department, Logistics Department, all the department heads, as well as the management personnel who were not out for work, rushed to the meeting room as soon as they received the notice. Lu Chen didn't like meetings. The daily operation and management of Qinfei Media was also managed by Lu Shi. Although he held the most shares, he was usually a hands-off manager. But today's situation was very different, because this meeting was the promotion meeting for The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. It was not only related to the box office of this movie, but also related to the future of Lu Chen's wuxia IP plan. At present, the people in the company were still stable, but the influence of the outside world always existed. The failure of wuxia movies such as Young Man in Pugilistic World made many people a little unconfident. Therefore, Lu Chen personally attended this meeting. The purpose was to gather people's morale, twist the whole company into a rope, and launch the publicity and screening work of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. And the effect was very good. When the middle and senior management personnel of Chen Fei Media saw Lu Chen and Lu Shi sitting at the main seats, they all showed excitement, and the atmosphere in the meeting room quickly became enthusiastic. Although Chen Fei Media was established for less than 2 years, it expanded very fast. At present, it had more than 300 employees, set up a complete department, and hired a group of experienced and capable management personnel. These employees and the department managers could be said to be the solid support of Lu Chen. Without their hard work, it would be impossible for Lu Chen to realize his ambition and create one peak after another in his career. On the contrary, in the eyes of the employees of these companies, Lu Chen is not only the top star in China, but also an idol who has never failed. Whether it is singing, making movies, making TV series, producing variety shows or even writing scripts, he has shown extraordinary talent, sweeping the market and sweeping away all obstacles. It was this halo of invincibility that allowed Lu Chen to have an extremely high status in Chen Fei Media. Although he did not spend much time in the company, his position as the soul of the company was unshakable. After everyone had arrived, Lu Shi immediately announced the start of the meeting and briefly explained the theme of the meeting. That was the 21-day marketing campaign for The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. From tomorrow to the premiere on October 1st, the promotional period of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was 21 days. Chen Fei Media would invest a lot of money in these 3 weeks to bring the movie back to the public's attention. Lu Chen had set a budget of 50 million yuan for the first song of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, which was almost half of the shooting cost. Actually, a lot of this money had already been spent, because a lot of media advertising spaces needed to be purchased in advance, and there were other planning activities and so on. Manager Fang, contact Beijing Television this afternoon about the advertisement placement. Supervisor Lin, how's the discussion with the subway company going? When will we be able to install the billboard? And the QQ network, we need to invest more. This meeting was still presided over by Lu Shi. After 3 or 4 years of honing, her sister had quickly grown into an elite in the industry. She gave orders with confidence, and the directors and managers of the various departments all obeyed her orders. After arranging the work, Lu Shi turned to Lu Chen and said, "You say a few words." Lu Chen nodded and reached out to press the switch of the microphone. He organized the words in his mind and then said, "I won't say more about the work. I believe everyone will be able to do it well. I'll just talk about the goal I want to achieve here." Lu Chen looked around, glanced at the faces of the department managers and directors one by one, and said in a deep voice, "When The Smiling, Proud Wanderer started shooting, a reporter once asked me what the box office expectation of this movie was. My answer is 1 to 1. 5 billion. Hearing the 2 numbers from Lu Chen's mouth, everyone's expression was a little subtle. At that time, when Lu Chen said that The Smiling, Proud Wanderer could have a box office of more than 1 billion, most people still believed it, because Lu Chen's first work, A Chinese Ghost Story, had a box office of more than 1 billion in China, and The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was a film adapted from a popular IP. With the participation of several big stars, there was no reason that the box office would not be as good as its predecessor. But now I'm afraid many people don't think so, because with the bloody example of young Jianghu, it was difficult to make people have full confidence in The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, which was delayed until the National Day. Young Jianghu was also a popular IP, with a large investment, a luxury star lineup, and a huge amount of publicity. As a result, it didn't even recover the cost. As for the new 7 Heroes and 5 Righteous and The Wanderer, it was even worse. The box office failure of the new 7 Heroes and 5 Righteous even dragged down the parent company of the Land Pictures, and the stock price fell to the limit. The summer period that made the major film companies heartbroken had just passed. To be honest, no one had any idea whether Lu Chen's original bold words could be realized, and they even subconsciously felt that it was better to be cautious. For example, the break-even profit of 500 million to 700 million in the box office should be more realistic. Lu Chen looked at the expressions of these department managers and supervisors, and he could see through their thoughts as if they were watching a fire. He knocked on the conference table with his fingers and said, "Now, I still insist on the same box office prediction, and asked the company to be unified in the publicity." A department manager couldn't help but ask, "Director Lu, do you mean that we still insist on the box office prediction of the smiling, proud wanderer and the 1-to-1? 5 billion in the publicity?" In his opinion, such a request from Lu Chen was really unnecessary. Things were different now. If the final box office did not meet the expectations, wouldn't Lu Chen be slapping himself in the face? It was normal to make a mistake the first time, and it would be easy to become a joke if he insisted on his own opinion when the situation changed. It would be a heavy blow to Chen Fei Media and Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen's answer was extremely firm, "Yes, because I have confidence in the smiling, proud wanderer. The quality and effect of Sword of Mount Hua have reached and even exceeded my expectations. So I believe that the box office of this film can completely achieve our goal, so we don't need to be cautious in the publicity, and don't be affected by other people's failure." The conference room was extremely quiet, and only Lu Chen's sonorous voice echoed. His strong confidence infected everyone in the room. Chapter 835. Jiangcheng, Light-Speed Internet Cafe. When night fell, the internet cafe gradually became bustling with activity. It was bustling with activity. Light-Speed Internet Cafe was originally called Light-Speed Internet Cafe. It had been open for more than 10 years. Although the current situation of the internet cafe industry was not as good as it used to be, and many internet cafes had already closed down, this internet cafe could still be maintained by relying on its geographical advantage and persistent low price strategy. However, in the second half of last year, the district issued a notice to rectify all small and medium-sized internet cafes. Light-Speed Internet Cafe faced the situation of closing down. The boss had no choice but to transfer it to someone else to avoid losing everything in the end. After the new boss took over, he bought the business room next door and used the reorganization time to upgrade the internet cafe. Thus, there was the current Light-Speed Internet Cafe. The name only changed a few words, but it immediately appeared to be a lot more lofty. Of course, the consumption was also incomparable to before. The internet fees increased by several times, scaring away many old customers who were short of money. Fortunately, the new boss still knew how to do business. He continuously introduced a number of preferential measures, such as 50 free if you charge 100, 150 free if you charge 200. He still retained many people. Wang Pu was one of the old customers who stayed. Wang Pu moved here more than a year ago. Although the conditions of the new rental apartment were better than before, and the landlord gave him a network cable, he could enjoy free broadband. However, the feeling of staying in the rental apartment to surf the internet was obviously not as good as the internet cafe. Thus, he became a regular customer of the internet cafe. His first choice was of course the nearest light-speed internet cafe. Wang Pu's income was not bad, and his family did not have any financial burdens. In addition, he was a single dog, so his usual expenses were not high. Therefore, upgrading the Light-Speed Internet Cafe to Light-Speed Internet Cafe was not a big deal for him. He directly applied for a 500 free membership card, which was enough for half a year's expenses. The Internet Cafe was a bit expensive, but the environment was really much better. It was all non-smoking areas. At least, it was not as foul as before. There were a lot more girls who came to surf the internet. Wang Pu had just sat down in his old seat when a girl came next to him. Wang Pu skillfully turned on the computer and quickly logged into his QQ number. The headset on the table suddenly emitted a DDD sound that lasted for a few seconds. The girl next to him heard it and curiously glanced at Wang Pu. Wang Pu didn't notice. He quickly opened his QQ and replied to the messages one by one. These messages basically came from QQ groups. Chapter 836. So handsome. While Wang Pu was enjoying the first poster of the smiling, proud wanderer, a clear voice came from the side. Is this Lu Chen's new movie? Wang Pu couldn't help but turn his head and saw that the girl sitting next to him was curiously looking at his computer screen. Her sparkling eyes flashed with the light of surprise. This girl was in her 20s. She wasn't very beautiful and could barely be considered delicate and pretty. However, her body was brimming with youthfulness, which still made Wang Pu, an otaku, feel a little excited. Hearing the girl's question, he quickly said, "Yes, it is the poster of Lu Chen's The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. It just came out tonight." The girl smiled. "I am a fan of Lu Chen. I have heard of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. It seems to be adapted from a martial arts novel. Is it going to be released soon?" Even if she is a fan, she is just a fan. Wang Pu complained in his heart, but he became more polite. It will be released on October 1st, National Day. The original novel is also very good. The character played by Lu Chen is called Ling Hu Chong. He wanted to introduce the story of the smiling, proud wanderer to her, but the girl was not interested at all. What attracted her was the beautiful poster on the screen. She moved her butt, picked up the mouse on the table and clicked on the next poster. Wang Pu closed his mouth and his attention was also attracted by the next poster. The protagonist of the second poster was changed to Chen Fei. She was dressed in a white traditional Han costume, which set off her heavenly fragrance. She waved her sword as if she was flying with the wind. Against the background of the beautiful river behind her, she looked like a fairy. Her otherworldly aura was blowing in the face. Ren Ying. Wang Pu's heartbeat suddenly increased by 2 times. This was the Ren Ying he liked the most in his heart. Chen Fei is so beautiful, the girl sitting beside him praised sincerely. Wang Pu actually heard some envy and even jealousy in her voice. Different from those female stars who rely on plastic surgery, makeup and PS to maintain their image, Chen Fei is a real natural beauty. Her bare face is enough to kill a lot of her peers. Now her image in The Smiling, Proud and Arrogant Wanderer has raised her temperament a lot again. I have to save this poster and use it as my computer desktop. The girl sitting next to him didn't spend too much time admiring Chen Fei's poster. She clicked on the third one. The third poster was of Lu Gangsheng, who played the role of Xiang Wentian. In The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer, Xiang Wentian was also Wang Pu's favorite character. Among the male characters, Xiang Wentian was second only to Ling Hu Chong. Wang Pu thought that although Xiang Wentian was not a righteous person, he was good at martial arts, bold, resourceful, and had a bright personality. Lu Gangsheng, who was played by Lu Gangsheng, gave Wang Pu another surprise. Unconsciously, he had great expectations for The Smiling, the Proud Martial World, which would be released on October 1st. He had planned to watch it, but now he had to get support from the cinema. If it was interesting enough, he would watch it 2 or 3 times. The 5 movie posters were soon finished. What was more considerate was that the official account of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer provided high-resolution pictures for download. "Can you send me this website address?" The girl sitting next to him asked Wang Pu. "I want to download these posters." I was just about to download it. Wang Pu suddenly had an idea and said, "Tell me your QQ number. I'll send it to you now. You can save it in your QQ network disk and watch it and download it at any time." The girl pursed her lips and smiled, but she still generously told him her QQ number. Wang Pu quickly added it, and at the same time, he downloaded the poster pictures on the blog and sent them to the other party. As Wang Pu said, the girl saved the picture file in the QQ disk. After thanking him, she got off the phone and left, which made his heart, which had just been stirred up, splashed a basin of cold water on it. If he got the QQ number, he still had a chance. Wang Pu comforted himself and continued to look at the stills released by the official account. There were more than 100 stills of the movie leaked on the official website. To a large extent, the style of the upcoming movie was displayed. The outstanding scenes made Wang Pu's heart itch. After browsing through all of them, he couldn't wait to open his QQ group. At this time, it was the most lively time in the QQ group. As the fan group of the smiling, proud wanderer, the most discussed topic was undoubtedly the movie posters and stills released by the official account. Lu Chen is so handsome. He's exactly the Ling Hu Chong I thought he was. I must go to the cinema on October 1st. This is the real martial arts style. What the hell was the previous Young Wanderer? It can't be compared at all. The box office deserves to be a flop. Ren Yingying is so tall, and Chen Fei is so beautiful. I was worried that the smiling, proud wanderer would be made like those martial arts movies, which would ruin the classic. Now I'm finally relieved. Who knows when the movie tickets will be sold in advance? My Feishin account is already thirsty. Rest assured +1, looking at these comments in the group, Wang Pu couldn't help but smile. It seems that everyone's opinion is exactly the same. The posters and stills released by the official account of the smiling, proud wanderer are really great. They completely beat the previous group of imitators. Thinking about the characters in Young Wanderer and Jianghu Wanderer, where are the characteristics of martial arts? They completely copy the routine of fantasy and fantasy. The decoration is gorgeous and the appearance is bright. They don't look like real characters at all. They only know how to sell their face. They don't have the temperament of a hero at all. To put it bluntly, compared with the smiling, proud wanderer, those so-called martial arts movies have become trash in terms of character design. Although the movie hasn't been released yet, it's hard to say the specific quality, but at least this is a film that is loyal to the original and pays attention to quality. Wang Pu is looking forward to the National Day soon. On the evening of September 20th, the official account of the smiling, proud wanderer released the movie posters and stills, which officially opened the publicity of this martial arts blockbuster, and immediately attracted the attention of countless fans and industry circles. The next night, at the same time, the official account released the first official trailer again. On the evening of the 22nd, the second trailer was released. Starting from the 21st, the promotional posters of the smiling, proud wanderer appeared in major cinemas all over the country. The advertisements of the smiling, proud wanderer appeared in the subway stations and bus stops of several major big cities. Not only that, Chunfei Media also announced that the smiling, proud wanderer will participate in next month's Shanghai International Film Festival. At the same time, the smiling, proud wanderer cosplay competition will be held at the Capital Animation Festival at the end of next month. Such a series of intensive publicity actions made this martial arts movie, which has been silent for a long time, suddenly reappear in everyone's eyes. Chapter 837. In modern society, the power of money was infinite. The advertising of any product was inseparable from the support of a large amount of money. Generally speaking, the more money was spent, the more people would be affected, and the deeper the level of influence would be. Of course, movies were no exception. In fact, movies were one of the industries that paid the most attention to advertising and marketing, especially Hollywood, the king of movies in the world. They invested an astonishing amount of money in this area every year. It was normal for a movie that invested $100 million to spend another $50 million on marketing. This kind of huge investment in advertising and marketing was also one of the mysteries of Hollywood movies that dominated the world. This year, with the continuous expansion of the domestic movie market, domestic movies also paid more and more attention to marketing, especially for blockbusters with high investment. They racked their brains to do more publicity, especially in the area of online marketing. But it was quite rare for the smiling, the proud wanderer to invest so much money in such a short period of time and create such a big impact. It inevitably caused a great impact in the industry. Some people were dumbfounded. This was not the right style. For a long time, Chunfei Media, represented by Lu Chen, didn't invest much in marketing. Whether it was a record or a TV series, they often used their own influence to promote. The most typical example would be the online platform. Usually, when he and Chunfei Air showed their love, there would be hundreds of thousands or even millions of shares. The TV series didn't need to be promoted at all. Countless fans were eagerly looking forward to it. They didn't have to pay for it, but the media was also chasing after it, and the ratings kept rising. It couldn't be helped, because Lu Chen was so popular. He posted a blog on Wave's blog, and the publicity effect was worth millions of marketing investment. That was something that others couldn't be envious of. The smiling, proud wanderer undoubtedly adopted the same publicity strategy at the beginning. Lu Chen wrote a love poem to Chen Fei, and it was unknown how many people's eyes were attracted to it. As for the investment, it was almost equal to nothing. However, what people didn't expect was that Chen Fei Media would make a huge investment in promoting The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer, which was only half a month away from the screening of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer. The entertainment circle was big, but it was also small. The news in the entertainment circle always spread fast. Although Chen Fei Media did not disclose how much they had spent on the promotion of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, people in the industry quickly deduced that Chen Fei Media had spent at least 30 million yuan, and the total budget was estimated to be double. This kind of inference was quite accurate and shocked many people. Some people guessed that Chen Fei Media, or more accurately, Lu Chen, must have realized the huge pressure of the box office of The Smiling, the Proud Martial World, so they promoted it at all costs, trying to reverse the embarrassing situation faced by the current martial arts movies. At the opening ceremony of The Smiling, Proud Martial Artist, Lu Chen had predicted a box office of 1 billion to 1.5 billion. If he couldn't even achieve half of it, he would undoubtedly lose face. Some were surprised, some were curious, and some were gloating, thinking that Lu Chen had finally run out of tricks. The more advertisements were invested in The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer, the fiercer the publicity was. Many people in the industry were more pessimistic about the box office of the movie. They even thought that Chen Fei Media might not be able to recover the cost after adding a huge amount of marketing expenses. Look at you, you were so confident before. In the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz, Chen Fei showed his phone to Lu Chen and said gloatingly, "Now someone has something on you, right?" Lu Chen took a look and found that the screen showed a blog post from a verified self-media person on Wave's blog. He said that The Smiling, the Proud Martial World's box office was between 500 million to 700 million yuan, or even lower. In order to prove his point, this self-media person also listed a lot of data, including the box office of Young Man in Jianghu and other martial arts movies, and even the information from a research company. The production cost of The Smiling, the Proud Martial World and the publicity cost were calculated according to the investment of 200 million yuan. The box office needed to reach more than 400 million yuan to break even. And that didn't include the salary of Lu Chen and Chen Fei, it would be 500 million yuan. Missing the golden summer period and facing the dilemma of the theme, it was undoubtedly extremely difficult for The Smiling, the Proud Martial World to create a new miracle in the box office. The conclusion of this self-media person was approved and supported by many people. It was reposted and liked by tens of thousands of people. They also thought that movies with the theme of martial arts were destined to be a failure of domestic movies. The Smiling, the Proud Martial World would follow the footsteps of Young Man in Jianghu, and it would be extremely lucky to break even in the end. Lu Chen didn't care about the negative comments on the blog at all. Because the final decision of the box office was not made by the big and small versus in the industry, but by the hundreds of millions of audience. He was confident in his own work, so why should he be afraid of others' sarcasm? Since he started his career, there were always slander and slander behind the flowers and praises. He didn't know how many people were waiting for him to be unlucky. Lu Chen swiped the screen with his finger, looking through the blog posts related to The Smiling, the Proud Martial World. In fact, in addition to these negative comments, there were also many supporters of Lu Chen in Wave's blog, especially for the posters, stills and trailers released by the official V of The Smiling, the Proud Martial World. Some film critics thought that The Smiling, the Proud Martial World was not the same as Young Man in Jianghu. In addition to the excellent character designs, several edited fighting scenes were also very wonderful, with distinct and unique characteristics. Especially the fighting scene in the rain in the second trailer, there were no fancy special effects, no exaggerated performance, and every move was full of cruel beauty of violence. It was different from Hollywood action blockbusters, and also different from the popular IP adaptations of domestic movies. They believed that as long as the film maintained the same standard, it would definitely bring unexpected surprises to the audience. As a person who was good at creating miracles, this film critic believed that Lu Chen would not let everyone down. His point of view was also supported by many people, especially Lu Chen's fans. But there were also people who argued that he was being paid by Qinfei Media to speak. But Lu Chen could guarantee that so far, Qinfei Media had never spent money on a film critic, including this time when the publicity of the smiling, the proud martial world was so big, but there was no budget arrangement in this area. Of course, even if Qinfei Media came out to refute, it would not be able to convince everyone. So in the end, the truth had to speak, and the truth was the box office. In 3 days, the smiling, the proud martial world would be released in all the major cinemas in the country. Lu Chen gave the phone back to Qinfei, and his mind couldn't help but drift to the future. Chapter 838. Beijing New Era Art Park, Qinfei Media Headquarters. September 29th was Saturday. Since it was October 1st, the National Day, 2 days later, this year's National Day holiday began today. Including next week, there would be a total of 9 days of holiday time. Most enterprises had already entered the holiday mode of the Golden Week. However, few employees of Qinfei Media had a holiday. In fact, most of them couldn't go sightseeing or sleep at home during the holiday. On the contrary, they had to work overtime. It wasn't because the boss exploited the employees inhumanely. In fact, the treatment of the employees of Qinfei Media was well known in the industry. All the employees who worked overtime would get multiple times the salary and holiday compensation. The reason for this situation was that the most important movie for Qinfei Media, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, would be officially released on October 1st, and the pre-sale of the movie tickets had started as early as 4 days ago. At the same time, the promotional activities of major media had also reached a peak. Tens of millions of yuan had been spent. It could be said that the success or failure of the movie depended on this Golden Week. All kinds of information were summarized from different channels. The pre-sale results were gradually clear. The latest data was printed on a thin piece of A4 paper and sent to the general manager's office. Lu Chen, Lu Shi, and Qinfei were all in the office. Lu Shi picked up the heavy paper, spent a few seconds to read it, and then handed it to Lu Chen. There was no expression on his sister's face. Lu Chen took it, and lines of data immediately came into view. As of 3:00 p.m. on the 29th, the cumulative pre-sale box office of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, in Beijing, 3572570, Shanghai, 2980500, Shenzhen, 2102570, the national cumulative pre-sale box office, 41275,630. The pre-sale in 5.5 days was more than 40 million yuan. Plus the rest of the day and tomorrow, it was basically impossible for the pre-sale box office to exceed 50 million yuan. For many domestic movies, such a pre-sale result was completely worthy of a celebration party, but for The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, it really wasn't so good. Under normal circumstances, the ticket sales of movies now accounted for 10% to 15% of the total box office. Unless the movie's reputation was bad or it became very popular, there were very few exceptions. According to this ratio, the total box office of The Smiling, Proud Martial World would not exceed 500 million yuan. It would be very difficult for it to recover its cost. Moreover, such a pre-sale result was produced under the circumstance that tens of millions of yuan had been invested in promotion. Moreover, according to the release schedule, there was no way to compare the National Day period with the Summer and New Year period. Although there were fewer competitors, the box office expectations were bound to be discounted. Such a start was undoubtedly quite unfavorable. After reading the statistics, Qinfei also fell silent. The atmosphere in the office was very heavy. After a while, Lu Shi said, "We have also invested 30 million yuan in the surrounding area." There was a hint of bitterness in his sister's voice. Because of the success of Lu Chen's first movie, a Chinese ghost story. In terms of box office and peripheral products, Chen Fei Media invested more in the smiling, proud martial world. Big variety and quantity of the customized peripheral products had already exceeded that of a Chinese ghost story. Most of them had already been sent to cinemas all over the country. The higher the box office, the more popular the peripheral products were. This was an unshakable iron law, and vice versa. Now the pre-sale of The Smiling, Proud Martial World was not good, and the future box office was covered with a shadow. Under such circumstances, the future of the peripheral products that had already been piled up in cinemas and stores was undoubtedly uncertain. It's all because of those rats. Chen Fei slammed the paper in his hand on the table and said angrily, "That's too hateful." The rats *T, that Chen Fei said was naturally the few movies that followed the trend in the summer. If they didn't ruin the reputation of the martial arts movie, with the popularity of the IP of The Smiling, Proud Martial World, the cast of stars, and the high investment in the promotion, the pre-sale of the movie would have reached 50 million yuan no matter what. It was definitely not appropriate to say that they were stupid teammates, and it was not appropriate to say that they were stupid opponents. They could only be described as rats *T. They were not good people, and they were big and disgusting to others. Different from a Chinese ghost story, Chen Fei had a lot of feelings for The Smiling, Proud Martial World. She played the big negative boss in the former, and the latter was the heroine. It was the first blockbuster that she and Lu Chen acted as the heroine and heroine. It was very meaningful. Although the poor box office of The Smiling, Proud Martial World would not affect the operation of Chen Fei Media, Chen Fei was still disgusted because she was very clear that Lu Chen had put in a lot of effort for this martial arts movie. If his efforts were wasted because of other stupidity, it would be too unfair. Actually, the situation, Lu Chen shook his head and said, "It's not as serious as you think. It's not that we don't have a chance. It should be said that he made a mistake on the project of The Smiling, Proud Martial World. The mistake was that he did not expect the possible unfavorable situation, and delayed the screening time of The Smiling, Proud Martial World from the summer to the National Day. As a result, it caused a series of passive situations. But for Lu Chen, it was not unacceptable to pay such a price. Because the reason why he did not rush the screening time was to ensure the quality of the movie, to ensure that the first part of The Smiling, Proud Martial World could achieve a perfect start. This perfect not only referred to the box office, but also the audience's reputation. Therefore, the current pre-sale results of the box office did not mean anything. The key was the response and evaluation after the screening. This was the reason why Lu Chen could still maintain his confidence. At this moment, it was too early to say whether it would succeed or fail. Seeing Lu Chen's calmness, she was a little bit anxious, "So we all worried about you for nothing. If the box office is really not good, you will be the one who will lose face, as you said you could get more than 1 billion yuan in the box office." Lu Chen said with a smile, "I am thick-skinned, it doesn't matter." Seeing his shameless look, Chen Fei also couldn't help laughing, and his gloomy mood dissipated a lot. Lu Chen seized the opportunity and said, "Okay, we don't need to worry about the pre-sale anymore. Let's go now." Tonight, Chen Fei Media would hold the premiere of The Smiling, Proud Martial World at Beijing Poly Grand Theater. People from all walks of life were invited to attend. As the host, they definitely had to arrive in advance. This premiere was not too grand, but the invitation letters had already been sent out. Most of the guests who received the invitation had clearly indicated that they would come, so it also played a role in promoting The Smiling, Proud Martial World. But apart from all the promotions and activities, the final result of the box office was still the movie itself. Chapter 839. In the capital, Poly Theater. In the past 10 years, because of the rapid development of the film market, cinemas had sprung up in the capital. The number of cinemas had increased several times, and the number of screens had increased more than 10 times. But in the eyes of the old people in the capital, Poly Theater was undoubtedly one of the best cinemas in their hearts. This theater with a history of 60 years was located in the bustling area of the center of the capital. It originally served as a cinema, a theater, and a conference hall. After several renovations, its scale and facilities were no longer the same as before. Because of its history, location, fame, and versatility, many movies, including domestic and foreign blockbusters, chose to have their premieres in Poly Theater. At 7:30 on Saturday, September 29th, the premiere of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was also held in Poly Theater. The main hall of Poly Theater could accommodate 500 people. Chinfei Media didn't make a big promotion for the premiere, so it was quite low-key. The invited guests were mainly colleagues of Chinfei Media, friends of Lu Chen and Chinfei, in the circle, media representatives, filmmakers, and so on. Although there were only 10 media outlets that had been officially invited, a large number of uninvited media outlets had already arrived before the premiere began. They occupied favorable positions in the Poly Grand Theater and set up their cameras and cannons. Lu Chen, who came out to greet the guests in person, was surrounded by people. If it weren't for the security, he would have been drowned by the reporters. Lu Chen. Mr. Lu Chen, I am a reporter from New Film Network. May I ask, I heard that the pre-sale of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was only about 40 million. Is it true? Lu Chen, the theme of martial arts has been regarded as the poison of the box office. So, do you still stick to the original prediction of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer? Lu Chen. Dozens of reporters were noisily talking at once, itching to put the microphone in Lu Chen's mouth, and the questions they asked were not all friendly and harmonious, but aggressive questions. Seeing this, Lu Chen knew that if he didn't say anything, it would be difficult to deal with them. He thought for a while and raised his hand to signal the reporters to be quiet. These reporters were all old foxes. At a glance, they knew that Lu Chen had something to say. They immediately shut their mouths, but desperately stretched out their microphones to Lu Chen, so that their logo on the microphone appeared in the most conspicuous position of the camera. Lu Chen had seen a lot of reporters these years, so he had rich experience in dealing with them. He pointed to one of them. The reporter asked excitedly, "Hello, Lu Chen. I am a reporter from Entertainment Every Day. What is the current pre-sale of The Smiling, can you tell me?" "What?" Lu Chen answered frankly, "More than 40 million. Now, Lu Chen said calmly. The pre-sale of the box office was the same as the box office data. Because there were public channels to check, there was no need to hide it. In fact, the reporter of Entertainment Every Day already knew the relevant data, but he just took it as a topic." Hearing Lu Chen's answer, he immediately asked, "The pre-sale of less than 50 million yuan means that it's difficult for the total box office to exceed 500 million yuan. Can it be said that your prediction at the opening ceremony was wrong?" Reporters liked controversial topics the most. It was not a big deal for them to humiliate Lu Chen in public like this. It was already a euphemism. Lu Chen was too famous. Since his debut, everything had been smooth. He had achieved great success in all aspects. He had never failed. For the reporters, reporting Lu Chen's success was not fresh at all. Only Lu Chen's failure could make them excited. If they could stimulate Lu Chen to say something out of shame, it would be perfect. However, this trick did not work on Lu Chen. He smiled and said, "If you say that my previous prediction was wrong, then I still insist on it." "Insist on being wrong?" The reporter's jaw almost dropped. "You still insist that The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer can get 1 to 1.5 billion at the National Day box office?" Lu Chen shook his head, "Of course not. My prediction is the total box office." Originally, the Entertainment Every Day reporter had already made a detailed draft and prepared a lot of topics, but he didn't expect Lu Chen to be so stubborn and speak so resolutely, which made him unable to keep up with the rest of the words. Since he could not keep up, someone else asked, "Lu Chen, then why do you think The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer can create a miracle and change the audience's impression of martial arts movies?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Of course it's because of the efforts of all the cast and crew of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. I believe this movie can bring a completely different experience to the audience." In fact, after saying so much, it's more appropriate for the audience to verify it themselves. This was not right. The reporters around Lu Chen did not get any exciting remarks from Lu Chen. Instead, they felt like they were led by him. They did not come here to help promote the smiling, the proud wanderer. However, Lu Chen did not give them any chance. He raised his wrist and looked at his watch and said, "It's almost time. I have to go now. Thank you, everyone. Talk next time." As he spoke, he turned around and walked into the theater, ignoring the shouts of the dumbfounded reporters behind him. Lu Chen was very clear that no matter how much he said, it would not change people's minds. Only hard facts could destroy all doubts. So there was no need to waste time now. At this moment, many guests who came to attend the premiere were gathered in the lobby of the theater. Drinks and refreshments were also prepared to serve the guests. Many people were chatting in groups of 2 or 3. Chen Fei walked over with Tian Tian. Tian Tian had flown to the capital yesterday to attend the premiere. She was staying at their home. Lu Shi also followed them and said, "Almost everyone is here. We can start." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Then let's start. Let's go in together." It was finally going to start. He took a deep breath, and his heart couldn't help but feel a trace of apprehension and confusion. He hadn't felt this way for a long time. Maybe it was because he was under a lot of pressure recently. Maybe it was because this movie carried too much expectation. It was going to be tested by the market soon, just like a student entering the college entrance examination. At this time, Chen Fei held his arm. Lu Chen turned around and saw Chen Fei's bright and beautiful eyes shining. It was trust, support and encouragement. Chapter 840. What could they do in 90 minutes? They could attend 2 classes, take a nap, play a ball game with their friends, or enjoy a sweet and romantic dinner with their girlfriends. They could watch a movie in 90 minutes. In the number 1 hall of the Poly Grand Theater, all 500 seats were occupied. When the lights and shadows of swords gradually faded away, the credits appeared on the huge screen. When the theme song of The Ocean's Roar sounded again, the lights in the hall slowly lit up, bringing everyone back to reality from the illusory world. Then there was applause. Clap. 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 At first, it was 1 or 2 claps, with some hesitation. But after a few seconds, the applause suddenly became more and more intense, and more orderly. The guests who attended the premiere included industry colleagues who had good cooperation with Chenfei Media, friends of Lu Chen and Chenfei in the circle, and representatives of the media and film critics. No matter what the level of the movie was, the former would usually applaud out of politeness after watching the movie, but the latter might not, unless the movie was really recognized by them. Especially the film critics, unless they were specially hired with money, it was very difficult to impress them. These famous professional or semi-professional film critics with many fans on waves were often very picky about the story, character settings, costumes, special effects, dubbing and music of the movie. They were all within the scope of their judgment. Their standards might be different, but they were definitely much higher than the average audience. The same was true for the media and reporters. It was hard to please everyone, and they were no doubt the same. Now, whether it was the colleagues in the industry, friends in the circle, or the picky media and film critics, everyone applauded and stood up. No one talked about it. The only thing that echoed in the theater was the endless applause. Until Lu Chen led all the main crew to the stage. Chen Guizhi was supposed to lead the crew to the stage for the premiere of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer. Unfortunately, he was attending a film festival in Europe as a judge, so he didn't make it. In addition, Lu Gangsheng and Tan Hong didn't come either. The former had another job, and the latter returned to his homebody life after making a guest appearance in The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. He didn't want to stand under the spotlight anymore. But Lu Chen and Chen Fei were enough, especially Lu Chen. He was not only the leading actor of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, but also the action director, scriptwriter, arranger and so on. Undoubtedly, he was the real soul of this movie. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, and the applause became even louder. The applause was recognition, praise, respect, and gratitude at the same time. Thank you, Lu Chen, and thank you to the crew of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, for giving us such a good movie. Their applause was warm and sincere. Lu Chen and Chen Feier smiled at each other, while the other main actors and main crew either had red eyes or tears in their eyes. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. It was really not easy. It had been a year since The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was set up to today's premiere. The crew had traveled all over the country to shoot and work overtime to meet the schedule. It could be said that they had put in a lot of effort. However, in the industry and on the internet, there were many negative comments about this movie, which hadn't been officially released yet. They thought that The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would be the first failure of Chen Fei Media, and they wouldn't even be able to recoup their cost. Seeing these comments, how could the crew be happy? Especially the actors who had suffered a lot in order to shoot a good action scene, they had been holding back their anger. Now their hard work had finally been justified. Although the applause now couldn't represent the audience, nor could it determine the box office, at least it made them feel that their hard work wasn't in vain. Thank you, Lu Chen cupped his hands and saluted, thank you for your support. The applause that lasted for 2 minutes finally subsided, and the theater was soon quiet again. Lu Chen held the microphone and said, "It's a pity that the director of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, Director Chen Guizhi, is far away in Spain, so he couldn't attend today's premiere. But I will definitely pass everyone's applause to Director Chen." As soon as he finished speaking, the applause came again. Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's so warm. I feel that Director Chen can hear it even in Europe." There was laughter in the applause. Lu Chen continued, "The Smiling, Proud Wanderer is the second movie I've been involved in, and it's also the first installment of Chen Fei Media's series of martial arts movies. I can honestly say that I and all the staff of Chen Fei Media have high hopes for The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. I hope it can be loved by the audience, and even go global." He didn't hide his ambition at all. If it was before the movie, most people would only politely greet him, or even laugh at him in their hearts. But after watching the entire movie, many people changed their minds. They were even shocked. It was as if they had suddenly discovered a new world with too many possibilities. There were many real professionals in the theater. According to their standards, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would definitely recover its cost, and it was normal for it to make a huge profit from the box office. It was just that the final box office was still unknown. They had all watched Young Jianghu and the new 7 Heroes and 5 Gallants before, and it was because of the comparison that they understood the difference between The Smiling, Proud Wanderer and those films that followed the trend. This difference in essence would undoubtedly be the potential for The Smiling, Proud Wanderer to achieve success. Meng Xiaotang, who was sitting on the right side of the third row in the theater, was undoubtedly such a professional. He looked at Lu Chen, who was standing on the stage, and he was still recalling the wonderful scenes in the movie. At the same time, he was casually scribbling on the small notebook in his hand, leaving some meaningless lines. Different from most media reporters and film critics, Meng Xiaotang didn't like to use a tablet or a mobile phone to record what he saw. He preferred to write his own thoughts on paper, because the feeling of the pen tip on the paper was irreplaceable by any technology. From this point of view, Meng Xiaotang was a very emotional freelance writer. His film reviews were always full of emotional words. Perhaps it was a little bold and imaginative, but it was different from those of his peers who wrote in a conventional way. The feeling that The Smiling, Proud Wanderer brought him was completely different from that of Young Jianghu. Last time when he attended the premiere of Young Jianghu, Meng Xiaotang couldn't write anything, because he felt terrible. But now, he had too many thoughts, and he didn't know how to express them. Chapter 841. In the lobby of Poly Grand Theatre. The main hall, which originally had multiple functions such as ticket sales, food and beverage sales, and audience rest area, was temporarily transformed into a banquet hall tonight. When the guests came out of the movie hall, a long table had been set under the chandelier in the center, and a tall champagne tower was shining under the bright lights. The champagne tower, flowers, and delicious Western desserts were all prepared when the movie was playing, which undoubtedly gave the guests a big surprise and a small surprise. Chinfei Media made such a gesture. It was called a premiere, but in fact, it was almost like a celebration party. Weren't they afraid of becoming a joke in the industry before the smiling, the proud martial artist was officially released? Obviously, Lu Chen was not so stupid that he didn't know what to do. The only explanation was that he had absolute confidence in the movie and believed that the smiling, the proud martial artist would definitely be a success. Before the premiere, most people were skeptical or pessimistic about it, but now, in the cheers and laughter, glasses of champagne were sent to the guests by the specially hired waiters from the hotel. The atmosphere was harmonious and warm. Many guests who had planned to leave stayed and used it as a place to socialize. Cheers! Lu Chen and Chen Fei accepted the congratulations and compliments of the guests together, and they frequently toasted. Chen Fei was a light drinker, and she was a little drunk after only one glass of champagne. Her pretty face was faintly flushed, which made her look even more beautiful. She was wearing a tight white evening dress with narrow shoulders. Her black hair was tied up, and her swan-like neck was exposed. Her delicate and beautiful face and outstanding temperament undoubtedly made her one of the focuses of the audience. And Lu Chen, who was beside her, was not inferior. A well-tailored suit showed off his strong figure, and his handsome face was glowing. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and there was a touch of smile on his lips. Compared with the carefree and unrestrained Ling Hu Chong in the smiling, the proud martial artist, people unconsciously felt that they had traveled through time, reality, and illusion. So wonderful, Lin Jijia held a glass of champagne and said, "When it's officially released in 2 days, I'll bring my family to the cinema to support it." The deputy general manager and music director of Flying Stone Records is an old friend of Lu Chen. He said half jokingly and half seriously, "I should have insisted on letting Flying Stone participate in the investment. Now I feel like I've lost 100 million yuan." The smiling, the proud wanderer, was the beginning of Lu Chen's wuxia IP plan, and it was the cornerstone of Chinfei Media for the next 10 years. Therefore, he didn't bring in many investors to share the risk, but only cooperated with several long-term partners. Flying Stone Records was one of the collaborators. The original soundtrack album of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was produced and distributed by Flying Stone Records. At that time, Flying Stone Records intended to get involved, but was declined by Chinfei Media. However, because of the good relationship between the two sides, many artists under Flying Stone Records have participated in the roles in The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Mu Xiaochu was also an important supporting actress, and her role as Lin was outstanding. It could be foreseen that once The Smiling, Proud Wanderer is officially released, Mu Xiaochu's popularity will reach a new level. Together with several other artists, the benefits to Flying Stone Records will not be small. But people are greedy, and Lin Jijia was no exception. At the beginning, several martial arts films in the summer period failed miserably at the box office. Some of the senior executives of Flying Stone Records were quite glad that they didn't step into this big pit. Now that he thought about it, he felt it was ridiculous. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Thank you, Brother Jijia. We will have many opportunities for cooperation in the future." Lin Jijia pointed to him and said, "That's what you said. I'll remember it." Fei can testify. You can't go back on your word. In the past few years, through the cooperation with Lu Chen, Flying Stone Records has made a lot of money, especially its MSN Women's Group, which has firmly occupied the first throne in China and become the company's cash cow. But with the continuous growth of Chinfei Media, it was inevitable that people would worry about how long the cooperation between the two sides would last. What Lu Chen had just said undoubtedly gave Lin Jijia a reassuring pill. Chinfei pursed his lips and said with a smile, "Well, I'll remember it for Brother Jijia." Lin Jijia laughed and turned to socialize with others with satisfaction, giving the opportunity to others. As soon as Lin Jijia's front foot left, someone immediately came to Lu Chen's front foot. This was Zhang Yaocheng, the deputy general manager and editor-in-chief of Shanghai Publishing House, who also had a good relationship with Lu Chen. Shanghai Publishing House was one of the top 10 private publishing houses in China, with a strong scale and strength. When Lu Chen published the novel Autumn in My Heart, the publishing house won the copyright at a high price of 15% plus 500,000 yuan. At the beginning, it was Zhang Yaoqing who personally made the decision, offered such a high royalty, and single-handedly facilitated the contract. With Autumn in My Heart as the beginning, the novel version of Lu Chen's, full of romance, was also cooperated with Shanghai Publishing House. The total sales of Lu Chen's two novels added up to nearly 10 million. As a film and TV adaptation, it crushed a large number of best-selling novels. Putting aside the influence of the work itself, Shanghai Publishing House also contributed a lot. In the cooperation list of Lu Chen's studio, Shanghai Publishing House belonged to the first order. Later, You from the Star, and now, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and The Legend of the Condor Heroes, were all published and distributed by Shanghai Publishing House. Relying on these best-selling novels, Shanghai Publishing House not only made huge profits, but also expanded its influence in the industry, and its development was thriving. At tonight's premiere, Zhang Yaoqing was also one of the special guests. However, compared to the film itself, he was more concerned about the novel. Teacher Lu, when will Teacher Yi Jin-gu's new work come out? As the founder of the new school of wuxia novels, the pen name Yi Jin-gu was like a well-known golden signboard in the literary circle. The two long-length wuxia novels, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and The Legend of the Condor Heroes, had won great success. Putting aside The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, which had been published for nearly 2 years, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, which was newly launched by Shanghai Publishing House, was sold out. It took 2 consecutive additional printing to meet the market demand. The ambitious Shanghai Publishing House was not satisfied because of this. They hoped that Yi Jin-gu could strike while the iron was hot and write more and better works, so that the wuxia craze could continue. However, Yi Jin-gu was very mysterious. He had never appeared in public and never participated in signing activities. All the copyrights were bought out to Chunfei Media. Zhang Yaoqing had wanted to meet him in person several times, but he had not been able to do so. Therefore, he could only settle for the next best thing, which was to urge the other party through his relationship with Lu Chen. The chief editor of Shanghai Publishing House did not know that the author was already standing in front of him. Chapter 842. Among the people present, only Chen Fei, and Lu Shi knew that Yi Jin-gu was actually Lu Chen's sock puppet. Although they didn't understand the reason why Lu Chen hid himself, it stood to reason that this was a good thing to add a halo to himself. But since Lu Chen was determined to do this, the 2 closest people to Lu Chen naturally supported him unconditionally. Hearing Zhang Yaoqing's expectant inquiry, Chen Fei, couldn't help but secretly roll his eyes at Lu Chen. Lu Chen noticed Chen Fei's eyes. He smiled and said, "President Zhang, I don't know, but you can rest assured that his new book will still cooperate with Shanghai Publishing House." Yi Jin-gu was him, and this guarantee was, of course, genuine. Zhang Yaoqing very much wanted to talk to the author himself. After all, Yi Jin-gu was now a cash cow of Shanghai Publishing House. If it was poached by others, then he, the deputy general manager and editor-in-chief, would probably have to resign. Otherwise, it would be difficult to atone for his crime. Originally, Zhang Yaoqing was not particularly nervous, but after watching the first movie of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, he was keenly aware that this martial arts movie was likely to have a sensational impact, and the result would inevitably have a huge impetus to the popularity of martial arts novels. It was inevitable that the value of Yi Jin-gu would increase greatly, and it would inevitably be coveted by competitors. If he didn't even have this vigilance, how could Zhang Yaoqing become the head of Shanghai Publishing House from an ordinary salesman? Now that he had received a personal guarantee from Lu Chen, although he couldn't say that he was completely relieved, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Following Lin Jijie in front of him, Zhang Yaoqing was also satisfied when he left. Then Beijing Television, Zhidong Satellite TV, QQ, SYG, and other high-level guests invited to the ceremony expressed their congratulations to Lu Chen. Time passed quickly as they toasted each other. The guests began to leave, and Lu Chen, Chen Fei, and Lu Shi, as the hosts, saw them off one by one. "Hello, Lu Chen." Lu Chen had just seen off the manager in charge of QQ Video, and a middle-aged man greeted him politely. Lu Chen smiled and shook hands with him. "Hello." He had laughed too much tonight, and his face was almost stiff. But that was how it was in the social arena. As for the man in front of him, Lu Chen did not recognize him at all. He was merely entertaining him out of courtesy. The middle-aged man introduced himself. "My name is Meng Xiaotang." Lu Chen immediately reacted and quickly said, "So it's Teacher Meng. Nice to meet you." He had a good memory. He had seen the guest list for tonight's premiere. Although he hadn't met many of them before, he had memorized their basic information. Meng Xiaotang was a very famous freelance writer. The ID of his Waves blog was Teacher Meng. He had written many film reviews and had over 1 million fans. It must be pointed out that Meng Xiaotang was really a teacher, but he resigned a few years ago. Lu Chen still remembered that he had read several of his articles, which were very well written. Meng Xiaotang said with a smile, "You're welcome. It's my honor to be invited by Chen Fei Media and meet you here. The smiling, proud wanderer, was better than I thought. Tonight's trip was really worthwhile." Lu Chen thanked him. "Thank you." Meng Xiaotang said very earnestly, "After watching this movie, I have a lot of ideas. I'm going to write a film review when I go back tonight. I know your time is very precious, but I really hope to have a detailed chat with you if I have the opportunity. Let's talk about martial arts movies. I don't know if this wish of mine can be realized." "Of course, that's no problem." Lu Chen was ready to agree immediately, but a new idea quickly emerged in his mind. "Teacher Meng, if I want to put this conversation on TV, I wonder if you would be willing?" "Put it on TV?" Meng Xiaotang was suddenly stunned, but he was also considered half an insider. In the blink of an eye, he understood Lu Chen's idea. No one's success was by luck. Meng Xiaotang, who understood, admired Lu Chen greatly. This was obviously an idea that came up with on the spur of the moment. It was not the result of planning, but it was a perfect balance of time and interests. The TV station would definitely welcome this talk show. Lu Chen's influence was right there. Moreover, it was a movie that had just been released, so the ratings must be good. Lu Chen could take this opportunity to promote his own movie. Not only did he not need to spend a penny, he might even get an appearance fee. As for himself, although Meng Xiaotang was a very romantic freelance writer, he was not a saint who did not care about worldly affairs. He also needed to make money to support his family, and he also hoped to get more people's attention and recognition. Lu Chen's proposal was very beneficial to him. If he did not agree, it would be like being kicked in the head by a donkey. Out of a trace of the reserved nature of a scholar, he thought for a moment, then nodded hard and said, "I'm very willing, thank you." Lu Chen said with a smile, "That's good. I'll arrange the time here. I'll ask someone from the company to contact you." After leaving his contact information, Meng Xiaotang said goodbye to Lu Chen. He was in a hurry to go back and write a film review article. Lu Chen watched the other person's figure disappear into the elevator, deep in thought. "What's wrong?" Chen Fei walked over and looked curiously at the elevator. "Who was that just now?" "Meng Xiaotang, Teacher Meng." Lu Chen briefly explained the other person's identity to her and also told her his plans. Chen Fei pursed her lips and smiled. "You have a lot of wicked ideas." She asked again, "Then which TV station are you going to let do this show? Beijing TV or Zhejiang TV?" Lu Chen pretended to be dissatisfied. "Can't it be Central TV?" Chen Fei chuckled. "Do you think Central TV is owned by your family?" Lu Chen touched his chin. That makes sense. Although the two were joking, it was really practical. Because through the talent show, The Eight Storms Meet in Beijing, Chen Fei Media, or rather, Lu Chen, had established a good cooperative relationship with Central TV. As long as he was willing to use his connections, Central TV Department 2 would not have too big of an obstacle. But this matter was not important. For Lu Chen, the most important thing was the official screening of The Sword of Mount Hua on National Day. Although the premiere was very well received, the final fate of a movie, which was decided by hundreds of millions of ordinary people, was the box office result. If the box office of The Smiling, Proud, and Proud was not good, what was the point of talking to Meng Xiaotang on TV? The premiere was over, but the journey of The Smiling, Proud, and Proud had just begun. The day after tomorrow was October 1st. Chapter 843. On September 29th, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer had its premiere at the Poly Grand Theater in Beijing. That night, many domestic mainstream media and many famous people in the industry published their reviews on their websites and blogs. All of them were full of praises. Meng Xiaotang, whose ID was Teacher Meng, on Wave's blog, published his review at midnight. Tonight, I experienced an adult fairy tale. This was the title of the blog post. The freelance writer, who had millions of fans, wrote in the post. A history that is divorced from reality. The background of the film is completely imaginary. In this imaginary world, there are high and mighty sects, magical martial arts, exciting swords, heroic heroes who sing sorrowful songs, ambitious schemers, and devastatingly beautiful women. This movie contains thrilling fights, strange and unpredictable conspiracies, interesting romances, and rich philosophies. The one who leaves the deepest impression on the audience is undoubtedly the protagonist, Ling Huchong. He cares very little about fame and fortune, and he is not affected by worldly thoughts. He is free and unrestrained, and he is hot-blooded and heroic. Although he has experienced hardships, he is indomitable. I have never thought that a real martial arts movie would be like this. I have seen a few so-called martial arts movies before, and with all due respect, they are just a bunch of garbage. I think a real martial arts movie should be like this. It is a fairy tale that belongs to us adults. Meng Xiaotang's film review blog post was more than 2,000 words long. Unlike his usual film reviews, this blog post was obviously written in a hurry. Therefore, there was no elaborate embellishment in the writing style, but the true feelings between the lines were exactly his unique style. Those who were familiar with Teacher Meng knew that although he was over 40 years old, he had always been a romantic person. His reviews were casual and he wrote whatever he wanted. He laughed and scolded freely, and he never betrayed his moral integrity. Meng Xiaotang's praise for The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer exceeded his previous highest evaluation for domestic movies, so many fans left questions in the comments section. Teacher Meng, did you receive money? It was actually very normal to have such doubts. Nowadays, it was common for domestic blockbusters to hold a premiere, inviting a large number of media and people in the circle to come and support them. Then, there would be a flood of good reviews. As the saying goes, people support people in the sedan chair, so everyone was used to it. Some time ago, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was very popular, so it was not surprising that people spent money to buy good reviews on the night before it was released. Some people ridiculed Meng Xiaotang on the blog, saying that he finally sold his moral integrity for a good price. In the face of such vicious ridicule, Meng Xiaotang didn't get angry to defend himself. He just showed 3 screenshots of online tickets on his blog, saying that after The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was officially released, he would take his family to the cinema to support it. Some people were surprised, some people questioned, some people ridiculed, and some people took the opportunity to attack. But for the vast number of Lu Chen's fans, these praises and comments undoubtedly gave them a shot of adrenaline, and the atmosphere in related posts, forums, and QQ groups became more enthusiastic. On the evening of the 30th, the online pre-sale of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer ended, and the box office sales reached 49.7 million, only 300,000 away from breaking the 50 million mark. On October 1st, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was released in more than 3,000 cinemas in China, and the screening rate was 32.50%. In China, the National Day screening period was ranked third after the summer and New Year's screening period, so, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, couldn't outshine others, and it also had to face competition from many competitors. And among the movies released at the same time, the biggest threat to The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was undoubtedly the action blockbuster Ace Agent, produced by Superstar Pictures, which was also released on October 1st, and the screening rate was 43.77%, firmly crushing The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. Superstar Pictures was a famous film company in Hollywood, with a long history and strong strength. It was also one of the first American film companies to enter the domestic market. Every year, there would be 2 or 3 blockbusters introduced into the domestic market, and they earned a lot of box office. Ace Agent had an investment of $170 million, and the cast was strong. The male and female lead had considerable appeal in the domestic market, and the intensity of the publicity was not weak at all. So it was natural that Ace Agent had more screening than The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. In fact, the screening rate of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer was more than 30%, and it was also the result of Chen Fei Media's countless efforts. Because the box office of the martial arts films in the summer period failed badly, the cinema chain still had lingering fears. That was because Chen Fei, and Lu Gangxing's status were high enough, and coupled with the overwhelming publicity some time ago, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be strange to give 10% screening. And whether or not they could keep this screening rate depended on the performance of the film. Once the audience's reputation was not good, then the cinema chain would quickly adjust, and there was no mercy to speak of. In front of the benefits of the box office, the cinema chain was very realistic. Whichever film had more people watching it, they would give it more screening. Other than The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, and Ace Agent, there was also a domestic comedy film, a domestic urban romance film, and a Xiangjiang police and gangster film that took up the rest of the share. Compared to The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, and Ace Agent, these 3 films didn't have a large cast, investment, or publicity. If there were no accidents, they wouldn't be a big threat. The real competition still depended on The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, and Ace Agent. Aren't you worried at all? Beijing, Chen Fei Media's headquarters, in the general manager's office, She looked at Lu Chen, who was playing Plants vs. Zombies on his tablet, and complained, "A lot of people are waiting to see you make a fool of yourself." The battle of the box office had already begun, and She was in the headquarters, constantly paying attention to the screening of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. She had been feeling uneasy, but in the end, Lu Chen was just leisurely playing a game at this time. After setting up a new group of pea shooters and eliminating the last wave of zombies, Lu Chen put down the tablet in his hand, smiled and said, "There's nothing to worry about, we've done what we should and could do, now it's up to the audience to decide. As for others wanting to see us make a fool of ourselves, let them watch, let's see who can laugh in the end." She was convinced, "You're really ambitious." Lu Chen smiled and didn't say anything. Coming this far, he had already obtained countless things that he had dreamed of. Even if he failed, he didn't need to be afraid. Because he had done his best, and had no regrets. Chapter 844. It was October 1st, National Day. The whole country welcomed a 10-day golden holiday, and the happiest was undoubtedly the domestic tourism industry. The big cake worth hundreds of billions was really tempting, and it was really worth fighting for. However, for people living in the city, there were few people who chose to travel during the National Day holiday. There were naturally many reasons. For example, they were too tired from work, so they should have a good rest during the holiday instead of going out. Moreover, during the National Day, the tourist attractions were full, and it would be crowded if they went out. There were also people who didn't want to spend money. Nowadays, life was so stressful, especially for people living in big cities. The daily expenses were already hard enough, and they were reluctant to spend money on this. But they couldn't just lie at home and sleep every day during the 10-day holiday, right? Calling a few friends to go out for a meal, listening to music in a bar, or watching a movie in the cinema had become the choice of many people during the holiday. The domestic film market, because of the National Day holiday, ushered in a small peak after the summer vacation. And there were many movies in the cinema, among which the most eye-catching was undoubtedly the domestic martial arts film, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and the Hollywood action blockbuster, Ace Agent. The promotion of these two movies was vigorous. Although there was no tit-for-tat competition, the fierce competition was inevitable. For many people, they would watch both movies. Anyway, the movie tickets were not very expensive now, and they could totally afford it. Naturally, there was no difficulty in choosing. But for another group of people, they would seriously choose what they liked, and they might only watch one movie during the whole holiday. Of course, they would watch the best one, and they would be careful not to waste their money. Then, it was really a problem for them to watch The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, or Ace Agent. First, Ace Agent, a Hollywood action blockbuster with a big cast of big stars and a fierce and explosive trailer. It was a typical popcorn American movie, and it was undoubtedly a good choice for pastime. But in recent years, Hollywood action movies showed a trend of decline. Now, the mainstream was dominated by manga, fantasy, science fiction, and animation. In the past, Hollywood's popular action scenes swept the domestic market, but now, the domestic audience was tired of watching them, and it was very difficult to have much interest. Of course, for a Hollywood movie like this with such a huge investment, even if the theme and plot were old-fashioned, the special effects alone would be worth the ticket price. It would not be too much of a scam. Looking at The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, it was also a blockbuster. Although it was a domestic blockbuster, the cast was undoubtedly very strong. Lu Qin, Chen Feier, Lu Gangsheng, Tan Hong, together with a group of old actors and new generation actors, was naturally attractive. Judging from the trailer, posters and stills of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, it should be a sincere work, which was quite attractive. However, the problem was that the martial arts movies that were released during the summer had really hurt many audiences. They had originally come to support domestic movies and martial arts movies, hoping to see exciting new genres of movies, so they had bought tickets to enter the cinema. In the end, what the hell were those? Magical fantasy films with special effects, terrible plots, and celebrity shows that sold their faces. It was as deceptive as it could be. Watching such movies was a waste of hard-earned money. People could not care less about paying tens of yuan, but they could not feel that their intelligence and feelings were insulted when they paid. Therefore, the audience who had been fooled before had doubts about The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. As for the trailer and the stills, they wouldn't believe it easily. There were so many movies where the trailer was wonderful, but the actual movie was terrible. In comparison, they would rather watch Hollywood blockbusters, which had no plot and special effects. At least, it would not be too bad. Compared with these ordinary audiences who were wavering, Lu Chen's fans were undoubtedly much more determined. The fans of celebrities could be roughly divided into 5 types. First, there were brainless fans, which were often more extreme in their words, which were easy to be criticized by celebrities. Of course, there were also self-deprecating fans. Second, there were die-hard fans, which were the so-called iron rice. They were essentially very similar to brainless fans, but their willpower and actions were stronger than brainless fans, and their team spirit was very strong. The main force of a celebrity's fan support group was die-hard fans, which could be regarded as the backbone of the fan group. Then there were rational fans, which were actually the largest number of fans. Most fans of a real star were rational fans, who would not criticize their idol. They would support their idol's film and music works, but if their idol had any scandals, they would not unconditionally protect and support their idol like brainless fans and die-hard fans. There were also passerby fans, which could be regarded as the potential supplement of rational fans and die-hard fans. For many celebrities, how to attract a large number of passerby fans, and then turn them into rational fans and die-hard fans was undoubtedly a very important job. Finally, there were haters. To put it bluntly, they were haters, pretending to love a certain celebrity, and using the celebrity's name to humiliate other celebrities, to attract haters for this celebrity. Some of them were even high-end haters, which were the most troublesome. The number of Lu Chen's fans in Wave's blog had already exceeded 100 million, reaching an astonishing number of 120 million, which was the #1 fan list of Wave's blog. Of course, the number of fans in this blog was definitely fake, because many fans were sock puppets. Although he had never spent money to buy fans, according to the normal ratio, it was already very good if the number of really valuable fans could reach 20%. Even 20% was a very shocking number, which was basically divided into die-hard fans, rational fans, and passerby fans, which became the cornerstone of Lu Chen's support group. Lu Jiejun was the core representative of this group of fans. When the smiling, proud wanderer began to large-scale promotional leaflets, the fan support group with Lu Jiejun as the main force carried out continuous support activities, calling on the vast number of fans to support Lu Chen, and to book the movie tickets of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Nearly 50 million pre-sales results, most of which were created by them. On October 1st, this kind of support activities reached its peak. The fan group launched a large-scale movie-watching activity through a variety of online channels such as blogs, forums, Tieba, QQ groups, etc., with the intention that The Smiling, Proud Wanderer could make a good start on the first day of screening, and even beat strong competitors. I have a ticket at 10 a.m., Hangzhou Shisha Cinema Hall 3, who wants to go with me? The more the merrier. The coordinates are Shanghai, my girlfriend and I have booked tickets for the evening. Supporting Lu Chen is non-negotiable. Beijing Chang and Cinema, see you at 7 p.m., Hall 1. I'm in Shansheng. The popularity that Lu Chen had accumulated over the years was playing a huge role. At the same time, many people in the industry were also staring at the movie market on the first day of the National Day holiday, paying attention to the collision between The Smiling, Proud Wanderer and Ace Agent. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.